Hi, everyone. This is John Daly. I'm back with another episode of the Daly Express podcast. Today, I'm here with a return guest. He's a former Hollywood actor and award winning designer, writer, and director, and he's also a best selling author. His award winning memoir, A Cup of Tea on the Commode, is an endearing story of him caring for his elderly mother in her final years. I'm talking about Steven Porro. Mark, how's it going?
It's good, John. Last time we spoke, I think this is our third time. Last
Yes,
time you got me in a lot of trouble for almost being responsible for killing Tom Hanks in Castaway. So I have asked my attorney to join me, and if we get in any trouble again, then he'll let me know where, what to say, what not to say, and also whether we'll be suing John Daly and the Daily Express.
that's right. That's right. I'll be explaining this a little bit more for people in the podcast, but it really is a pretty funny story. But I wanted to start off by explaining, Mark, what led the second, or well, this is the third time I've interviewed you. I think it was the second time for this podcast, so this will be your second appearance on
Okay.
here on the Daily Express. But you and I have known each other for a while now, since we have the same book publisher. And the other day, I sent out one of my infrequent author newsletters. In it, I shared a father-son pastime I've been enjoying as of late with my young adult son. We've been watching a bunch of super cheesy 1980s action movies together. These are the ones that I saw a long time ago. In some cases, I've seen a number of times, but he had never seen them. Stuff with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and the rest. And I'm getting a real kick out of my son's reaction to the genre, just how over the top it was. It's fun to gauge that. But anyway, after iconic actor Chuck Norris, he recently passed away. This was just a few weeks ago. I showed my son 1982's Silent Rage, starring Mr. Norris. I had seen it once a long time ago. I'd sort of forgotten about it, but once we started watching it, it was just fantastic. It had every telegraphed, ridiculous element one could hope for from a 1980s action flick. And after you read that edition of my newsletter, Mark, you reached out and mentioned that you had actually worked with Chuck Norris once upon a time. So I figured, hey, let's bring you on the podcast and talk about it. He was such an important person in our pop culture there for a while. So Mark, how did you end up working with Chuck Norris?
Well, in 1999, I got called for an audition to play the big bad drug lord on Walker, Texas Ranger. And the original name of the guy was Victor Dante. But apparently, Satan had an issue with his name being used, so they had to change my last name to Darden. I have,
Oh, that's pretty good.
yeah, maybe the Satan had a good lawyer. Anyway, I got cast. I did something. It's really funny. Sometimes in an audition, from what I've heard from casting directors, as soon as you walk in the room, they know yes or no. And if you can act, that's icing on the cake. But they have a picture in mind, and if you happen to fit that bill. This one, I wasn't sure if I fit the bill, but I did something a little dangerous in the audition, and I just knew I had them. When we actually filmed the show, I repeated that emotion that I put into that one particular scene because I thought it was good. The guy is a drug lord. He's got a temper. And so I let the temper fly in this one thing that was somewhat unexpected. It wasn't like he was mad. He was just very happy about being like the king of Dallas and the drug trade at the time. So I got the part. And what's lovely about Hollywood is, this was filmed on location. So when they fly you, a limo picks you up at your house. You fly first class. A limo picks you up when you land at the location, and they set you up in a very nice hotel. And voila, there you are. So the first day I get down there, they bring me over to wardrobe right away, and I was one of the guest stars. I think there was like 3 or 4 guest stars, and all the other guest stars got there a day or two earlier because their scenes came up earlier. And so by the time I got there, I'm a big bad drug lord. I'm trying to choose wardrobe, and they're giving me these Bill Cosby colorful sweaters. And I'm like, wait a minute, and they go, no, but this character already has that wardrobe. This character, already, so I'm, okay. I'm the big bad drug guy with a gentle heart. I look like Mr. Rogers dealing drugs. So I was a little disappointed with that, but I tried to overcompensate with my behavior and my, I guess my nasty demeanor. So that was great. So I was down there for a total of 8 days, and what was interesting is Chuck's son, Eric, directed the episode. So I'm hanging out with family, and I think his brother was one of the producers as well. I don't know if I ever met him, but out of those 8 days, Chuck was only on the set 2 days. And this was maybe the second to last or last season. And by that time, Chuck, I think it kind of had it. He would show up when he needed to show up. And he had probably 4 different doubles. He had a very tall double for the distance shots, long distance, and he had a medium-sized double. And then Chuck showed up for the close-ups, and Chuck was a very short guy.
Right.
And I don't know maybe the other one did most of the stunts at this point because Chuck was getting a little older. But it was great because they set me up. I had a great mansion, and these people in Dallas, I have no idea why they rented this out to Hollywood, but they did. And Hollywood tries to be kind when they rent property, but still, we had a car chase and a huge shootout. There was a gang war at this thing. So this house had to get some damage. But it was my house, and it was really kind of fun. So the scene that I have with Chuck is I put a contract out on his partner, and he was killed, supposedly. And so Chuck is blaming me for it. And so he breaks into my house, and it's a really funny scene. He breaks into my house. It's kind of nasty, and I give my condolences. I say, I'm really sorry to hear about the death of your partner. And he's going, I know you did it. And then he turns to my henchman, who was the major guest star of that show, and he turns to him and he goes, and I know you pulled the trigger. And then they have this thing, which is, again, this is the 80s stuff, which is really funny, but this is, aired in 2000. Chuck and this guy have, like you do, you meet me anytime. Yeah, I'll meet you anytime. You name the place, and they're in my house. Now's the time, guys, get going. But no, they separate and they have their battle later on. It was hysterical. And what brought that up is I kind of, it's been a long time, but NPR, after Chuck's death, aired a tribute to him. And they played a clip from one of the Walker, Texas Rangers. And it's my clip of that scene. So I'm the first voice that you hear. And it was just funny when you're hearing that confrontation again, anytime, any place. It's like, yeah, you're here. So I don't understand. Anyway, so it was, they treat you like gold. I think that was the first time I had fans in the hotel because they know all the people on the show hang out there. And so people are taking pictures and I'm signing autographs. So that was all kind of fun. So it was a really lovely experience. And I think either right before or right after is when I also filmed Castaway.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about that next, Mark. But first, so that episode of Walker, Texas Ranger, I searched for that on YouTube because I was having trouble finding it on my streaming. I'm sure I just don't have the right streaming channel, but I did find it. It was in Spanish, but the version that
I over here I found the German one, which is I didn't know I spoke those languages.
Excellent.
My French is bad enough, but now I'm a polyglot.
That's right. Well, I was gonna say you had a pretty solid fight scene at the end. There was a like you said, it was a pretty impressive shootout too. I had never watched Walker Texas Ranger, and I guess I had in my head that it was perhaps shared some qualities with the A-Team where no one ever actually died. But no, there was
don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Oh, sorry. Well, I will say the fights, going back to the fight scene. There were some very good slow motion shots with you, Mark, including you delivered a colossal headbutt to someone, which I thought was very impressive. Was there ever talk of a spin-off series with you on it?
No, because I die in the end.
Okay,
So,
you acted like you didn't want me to tell. Yeah,
yeah,
you took
I was
two
going
to
to
the
say,
chest.
his more evil twin brother actually shows up later in the season. That was a pitch. They never went for it,
Oh,
unfortunately.
okay, okay.
So,
Which,
yeah, it was funny because even my sister said, I know it's a show and it's fake, but it's still weird watching your brother get shot in the chest and dying on TV. And so I could understand that.
did you was there much I mean, I'm sure there was a stuntman involved in some of those scenes you were in, but was there training as far because I mean you were martial arts fighting at one point, you were firing a gun. Did you go through any sort of training for that sort of thing?
You know what? I don't think I've shot a real gun before because of parts that I've played, and um, I don't like guns. I mean, it was, I went to a shooting range and I'm with a 38 and that's got a pretty good kick. I wasn't going to do the Clint Eastwood thing, but this thing still had a pretty good kick. And you just say, boy, this is scary because this little thing that's in my hand can really do some damage.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm not a fan of them all, but on that show, I did all the gunplay.
Mhm.
So I felt pretty comfortable, and I'm not sure if we even rehearsed. They seemed to think I was okay. What I tried not to do is sometimes I'm trying to think. I just saw a clip of a pretty famous actor, and he's doing a gun scene. He goes, "Don't watch the eyes," because his eyes were closed the whole time he's shooting. Because while we were doing that, my mansion not only is getting shot up, but the wall where they put what they call the squibs, those things are really blasting in your eyes and stuff. And I didn't have any glasses on at the time. So there's some danger really that is involved. But with the fight scene, yes, they had a stunt guy. What they do is anything over my shoulder, they would put the stunt guy in, because then
Mhm.
he had to fake the punches and stuff like that. But nobody's very close with the punches. That's all, I guess stage play or camera angles and stuff like that. But the problem that they had is they only had two shirts with the squibs for me to die in. And the stunt man had one and I had the other. So I had basically one take to get the death scene
Mm.
working. And I got along with Eric and the cast and the crew so much. I was so tempted to take the two bullets and go, "Is that all you got?"
That would have been pretty badass.
So they went out to change the ending and stuff like that. But I thought, no, I don't want to push it too far, because it was a great role, and had a lot of. I wore a lot of colorful sweaters, and yeah, it was a really fun experience. And they really are. It's like a family set. They treat everybody with a great deal of respect and stuff like that, and that's not always the case in Hollywood.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, as you alluded to a second ago, so this isn't the only time you've died on film. I would say your highest profile death, I think would have been, as you mentioned, Tom Hanks's the blockbuster Castaway, which you were in. We talked about this the first first time you came on.
Mm-hmm. Be
So
careful.
I'm just
Be
gonna say
careful.
you played Mark, you played the
Just a
flight
minute.
navigator in that movie, which would seem to mean, and I had expert testimony from another one of our authors that it was therefore your fault that the plane crashed. Are you and your lawyer still disputing that?
Yeah, Mother Nature had nothing to do with this.
Oh no,
Really.
I'll bring in Mother Nature as well, but I'm like,
Okay.
there's a lot of storms out there. You don't get a lot of
Yeah.
big airplane
And I,
crashes.
and I would,
You were in that cockpit.
yeah, the pilot just didn't listen to my directions. I think he had
There
a
you go.
problem. I think that, and I replaced the original navigator. So I think maybe he feared this kind of conversation, wanted to avoid it. So
Legal trouble
he
involved.
left saying he had another job in Canada. So I got to fill in and replace him for the crash and therefore death scene. I don't know if I told you last time. So I wrote a sequel to it that was more of a comedy based thing,
Yeah, let
where
people know about that.
my guy actually survived. And he ended up on the other side of the island. And I think one thing they didn't really exploit in Castaway was it was Christmas time. And so Tom Hanks gets a volleyball and some skates. And my guy who survived on the other side of the island has cases of champagne, Cracker Barrels, smoked sausage and cheeses, and he's living it up with, caviar and all these other Christmas items that also went down with the plane. So he's having the best time. And when he hears Tom Hanks starting to come around going, hello, hello, he hides everything because he's a jerk and he wants to keep all the food for himself. So
that was, I think the series Lost may have stole that idea, Mark, because they were partway, I think almost to the end of the first season, maybe even the second season, when they revealed that there were actually more passengers that survived in the back of the plane, and they were on the other side of the island. So you might want to talk to your lawyer about that, because it sounds like they might have lifted that idea a little bit.
Yeah. Well, they do say great minds think alike, so I'll attribute it to that.
Yes. So how many times? And I'm sure you probably don't have this number off the top of your head. How many times have you died as a fictional character?
Well, on stage, the first play that I did, I didn't die, but the critic would hope that I did. So I've died trying to perform. But no, I think those were the only 2 times on camera.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, Castaway, it's still some mystery because the water comes in. You don't see me die. You don't see my body. So, yeah. It's fun. Another thing about that, so all the guys that work on Walker, most of them are martial artists, and I'm not. I used to be a good boxer when I was a kid, so I'm hanging out with these guys, and we are kind of rehearsing the fight scene and stuff, and they love teasing the actors who think they're going to be able to do stunts with them. And so I let them have their fun, and they're making fun of my kicks and things like that. And I said, listen, guys, tomorrow I'm a badass drug lord. So you got to treat me with some respect tomorrow. You can have all the fun you want today, but tomorrow everything changes. And so I think they actually did, but I could just see them having a great time with all the guests that come in thinking they're hot shots and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Well, I was looking at your IMDb page the other night. And one show you were on that I had sort of forgotten about, so it was a reboot show. I don't think there was any gunplay or fighting in this one, but Love Boat: The Next Wave. Robert Urich played the captain on that one. Did you find love at least in that episode, Mark? I couldn't find
No, I played a very I guess out there Italian waiter. And we had again, I had a lot of fun playing this character. They liked this, that was more of Love Boat wasn't really serious stuff. I mean, occasionally they had some serious, I guess, scenarios, but my guy was just crazy in love with everything. He's Italian. So he's like, hey, this is great. This is great. So it was funny because the guy I was playing opposite was playing an Italian guy too. And I think he got a little upset that my Italian guy might have been a little bigger than him or something. So it's pretty funny. Some egos are very fragile over there. So it's, that's the part I don't miss at all. But it's funny. It's like, I grew up in Jersey. It's kind of like, hey, get over it. But
yeah, I watched a few clips of that episode just last night when I was putting my notes together. I was surprised that, it looked like a lot of that was, and I don't know about the scenes you were in, but a lot of it was actually appeared to be filmed on an actual cruise ship as opposed to a set. Did you do one or both, or how did that work with you?
I'll be honest, I don't even remember. But okay. since my stuff was interior stuff, probably on the set.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper to do that. You don't have to deal with the weather and stuff like that. So I'm sure that was done locally in Hollywood. And you're going way back in history, man. Oh my God.
I didn't give Mark much of a warning on this. I told him I was going to ask him about Texas Ranger, but I did not bring these other ones. So I'm gonna do one more. Okay. This will be a surprise one. So this is a show I actually used to watch when it was on. So 2 guys, a girl, and a pizza place. Yeah. That, of course, starred a very young Ryan Reynolds right at the beginning of his career. Long before he became Deadpool and starred in other films. Did you work any scenes with Ryan? Did you get to meet him on the set? I'm just kind of curious what he was like back then.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I might get in some trouble here, but the other guy nobody knows about. It's similar to Bosom Buddies. Tom Hanks, and I think Peter was the other guy. A good actor and stuff, and sometimes it's just luck or whatever. But Tom is a really good guy, and he remains a really good guy. and I think that played into it. On Two Guys, a Girl, and the Pizza Place, Ryan Reynolds was a sweetheart and just a very nice guy. The other guy was Mr. Prima Donna.
Really
And at
interesting.
that point, I was pretty a seasoned actor, and I almost wanted to say, "Listen, you are lucky, lucky, lucky. Don't throw this away by being an ass." And he was an ass.
Oh
And
wow.
I knew just from meeting Ryan, I didn't see that much work, but he had such a great attitude. He had good comic timing, but he was just a lovely guy to be around. And that's especially when you're doing a series or even a movie. A lot of times they ask, do we want to hang out with this guy for a series that's 5 to 7 years, or a movie for 3 months? And if it's a no, it's hard to get cast unless you're a major star and somehow you're bringing in the financing or something. But so I was not surprised at all when he took off after that.
Yeah, I remember thinking that too. I mean, when I first started watching the show, he sort of reminded me of Ben Affleck a little bit back then, sort of the character he was going for. But as it went on, I was like, yeah, I mean, I would have never guessed he would have reached the huge success that he has. But yeah, he did seem to have a kind of an it factor to him, and it's interesting to see that
Mhm.
what's happened. And he's just is by most accounts, he's a pretty good guy as well.
Yeah.
As you talked about here. Well, I won't bring up any more of these old ones. I know you were on Hill Street Blues a long time ago as well. Was that your first?
That was the first, that was my goal. I moved to Hollywood in '84, and I gave up a really good design career, and I wanted to be a good actor. I started studying from day one. I had a connection with an agent because I was doing some commercials and modeling stuff in Ohio at the time. And I tell people, I said, if you had a suit, you could work in Ohio. And I had a suit. So I got a fair amount of work there. So I had a connection, and she said, get into acting class right away, which I did. And so Hill Street Blues was my goal. And that was the first show I got on. So that was very cool. I do have a really fun Hill Street Blues story, though.
Please, yeah,
So
please tell it.
again, during that, my first two union parts were, again, I think in the same week. I did an independent film that was, I think, for HBO at the time. Just one day, but it was a long day. And when you're in the Screen Actors Guild, if you go overtime, the pay gets really nice. And so we went way overtime on that movie. Then I got cast in Hill Street Blues. We went way overtime there. So I'm playing an assistant DA. So all my scenes were in the courtroom. And it went into probably over 11 hours. And there's a gentleman probably in his 80s sitting in the courtroom as an extra. And he's having the best time. And we're all exhausted and stuff like that. And so during one of the breaks, I sat with him, chatted up. It's kind of said, don't you have something better to do with the years you have left? And he's like, oh, no, I love being here. I love the energy that all you young people have. And it makes me smile. Plus, this is my daughter's studio. And I said, who's your daughter? He says, Mary Tyler Moore.
Excellent.
So she owned the studio, and I'm talking to her dad. And it was just hysterical because on that studio, which is now gone into a lot of different names, they did St. Elsewhere, they did Hill Street Blues. Later on, they did Seinfeld. A lot of big shows were done there. And so this guy just wanted to hang out where his daughter's place. So that was fun, and that's when you have those little moments like that. It just it's like, this is great. This really is magical. This Hollywood stuff. Yeah,
and that was fun. Such a great show too. I happened to run into, and I'm forgetting the actor's name now. He played Belker on the show, the guy that growled. But yeah, we happened to.
He was not a nice guy.
I was wondering about. I've heard stories about that. So my wife and I, we went out to Hollywood last year for a couple different reasons, and ate at a restaurant out there. And him and his wife sat down at the next booth, and there was a lot of bickering going on. I mean, but I just thought it was interesting.
Not surprised.
I heard stories about him.
It might have been his method acting. I don't know, but he wasn't pleasant. Veronica Hamill was very nice. Jeffrey Tambor played the judge, And a few years later, I was in an acting class, and he was the substitute teacher at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. So the first scene I did, I played a lawyer. I forgot what the scene was. And we sat down for the critique, and I said, you know, we've met before. You were the judge. And he says, was I nice? And I said, yes, you were actually very nice. So it's, yeah, it's good, because some of these guys are just terrible. And they get away with it, and that's fine. But there was another show, and I'll tell you. So a friend of mine, Jenna Elfman, was in class with me as well, and she did a series. She got cast in her first pilot, and it was a series with I wouldn't say the name because well, I get, yeah, I'm not going to say it, even though I'm all the way over here. Anyway, so the star of the show was a person who was an icon from the 80s movies and stuff like that. And like The Breakfast Club, those kind of movies. She was now the star of the show. And Jenna, it was her first gig. And Jenna had this personality that was just infectious. And she was very talented, but she was just lovely to be around. And that show did not last very long, but somebody went, that girl. And a big time manager took her on. Within a year, they had at least $1 million development deal with 20th Century Fox. And out of that came Dharma and Greg.
Okay.
So that was her series. For many years. And that launched her. And part of it's luck. But again, she was a delightful person to be around. So it's amazing when you see that. It's like over here. So I live in France, and I try to have a good attitude about everything because I'm a freaking immigrant. I've got nothing. I just love being here. And people say, when do you go on vacation? I said, for the last 10 years, I've been on vacation. I'm in France. But you hear attitude. That ugly American stereotype really does exist. And I hear it, and I want to go and give, please don't do this. You're ruining it. You're in another land. Don't complain. When in Rome, do like the Romans. Just come on, man. Just relax and enjoy the wine. So anyway.
I hear you. I was curious. I was going to ask you just one more thing about Hill Street Blues. Was Dennis Franz on there when you were on? I think he came on later on the show.
Boy, no, I was like second to last season. So he was probably there, but he wasn't in the courtroom at that time. I had to deal with your friend Belker.
Yeah. I was always a big fan of Dennis Franz, and then later.
Yes. That guy was great.
A lot in my books. So.
Botchko loved him because he was a really very interesting character. But I think he died in Hill Street Blues, and then he was brought back to life. Either that or the next series. There was NYPD Blue, I think, also. There was a series where they killed him off, and he was so popular they had to bring him back. And I forgot how they did that, but everyone's going, wait a minute. So I still got a chance for the Walker reunion, maybe.
There you go. You never know. Know. Well, I do want to talk about your book too, Mark.
Forget the book. Let's talk about Seinfeld. Now
Well, so actually, okay, we will talk about. So you're actually buddies with the Soup Nazi, right?
Yeah, Larry. In fact, Larry wrote a nice review about my book. That's in the editorial reviews. Larry's a great guy because when I started my snack food company, he came down to one of the trade shows and did the Soup Nazi deal with handing out samples. He's one of those guys. Again, he's a lovely guy. Hadn't worked in probably 10 years. And he gets that Soup Nazi job, and he gets an Emmy nomination from it. And it's just amazing. And I think the guy who won the Emmy that year, I think was someone like Bob Newhart. So he wasn't too upset. Bob Newhart did a guest star on something, maybe even like St. Elsewhere or a show like that. I think he played a dramatic part and got the Emmy. So Larry's a great guy. And
how did you meet him?
Well, we studied together. The Beverly Hills Playhouse is like the spawning ground for probably at least 50% of Hollywood came through that. And including George Clooney, Michelle Pfeiffer, Tom Selleck. It goes on. And then lately would be more of Jenna Elfman. And we had a lot of well-known directors also would come there. When I first started there, I think it was 90 1990 or 1991. And my first scene that I did was from the movie Cousins with Ted Danson, and I forgot who played opposite him.
Was that Howie Mandel? Or is that a different movie I'm thinking of?
I think a different movie. This was
yeah,
a pretty serious movie. And so the scene that I wanted to do there was a very cute girl in the class, and I said, we got to do this scene, but I have to expand it. So I extended the scene. I wrote, and the guy that wrote the movie was in class. So I found out, the guy who wrote Cousins is in class. So I sat down with him, let him read the scene, and he gave me some notes and stuff. I thought that was great. But those were one of those, oh my gosh, that's really fun. So it was a great place to, I studied there for forever. And Milton Casellas was the teacher, very famous teacher in town. It's just a very bright guy and inspirational and stuff like that. So that was great. But on the Seinfeld thing, I have a design degree. So a lot of downtime I spent designing. So I didn't have to wait tables or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but so I kind of kept the design career on the side, and that helped me get parts in Hollywood because I did some design for some big people and stuff like that. And so one night I'm working on a project for Ice Capades with my client, and we were going to be working all night because we had a tight deadline. So she brought her boyfriend along, and my dad happened to be out visiting me from New Jersey. And so they hung out in the living room all night, getting along great. And at that time, my dad was 81. He was a year away from passing. And the next day, that guy calls me up and says, "Hey, would your dad like to be on Seinfeld? We have a VIP extra role for someone that looks like a New Yorker, and your dad is a New Yorker." And I said, "Let me check." So I turned to my father. I said, "Dad, would you like to be on Seinfeld?" Now, 90,000 actors in Hollywood would, I just say, give their left nut to be on that show in any capacity. And my dad's going, well, I like Jerry. Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
I'll do him a favor.
So they invited me to be on the show with them, and I was a union actor and stuff. So I said, I don't think I could do that because, I want to get a good role. And they said, "Don't worry, we're not like that at all." So my dad and I showed up. And it was they said their Christmas show, but they don't call it. It was, I think, the Andrea Doria was the name of the show. And it was an episode where Kramer couldn't afford to go to the doctor for a cold. So he went to a veterinarian and got dog medicine and started becoming a dog. So by the end of the show, he can't even talk. He's just doing Kramer in a dog Kramer. And so the end of the show, he's doing his Kramer dog thing, and my dad and I are standing in front of a liquor store. It's outside, and this was like not even maybe November, freezing. And maybe they had fake snow, but we were freezing. And they treated my dad like a king. It was really, really nice. And Jerry's another one of those guys. Nice guy. Everybody's nice. So we're doing this thing, and we're just extras. But we're standing in front, and Kramer comes running by us, and you see us in the background. And then the show ends with Kramer doing a freeze frame, and over his shoulder is me and my dad on Seinfeld.
Oh, nice.
And it was great. And it was my dad was in the hospital when it was supposed to air, and he told all the nurses, "Oh, I'm making my debut," and of course it got rescheduled. So it was a little bit stabbed to his ego, but it showed the next week, and I have a clip of it. I don't know if I have a clip of it on my a cup of tea website. I may, because I have a thing called bonus materials, and I have a lot of stuff that I talk about in a cup of tea in the Commode that is not pictured, or if people want to go more into it. So I do have some other stuff. If I don't have the Seinfeld, I will, because I'm writing the book focusing on my dad, and we definitely go into more depth about the Seinfeld thing. But that was not yet.
That was actually something I was going to ask you about. So yeah, a cup of tea on the Commode. That's the book you currently have out there. It's won a ton of awards. It's been very well received. Can you just kind of tell people a little bit about it? I was going to ask about your other book that you're working on as well after that.
Yeah. The pitch is at 55, I gave up my carefree bachelor life to become a first-time parent to a guilt-tripping, sharp-tongued, grumpy as all get out lady who could barely remember my name. and that was my mom. So I moved back from LA to New Jersey to the house that I grew up in, and cared for my mom, who was on her deathbed when this whole thing started. And she lived another 3.5 years. So it was great because I never had children and never married. So I learned a lot of things, especially all about unconditional love and patience and how important red wine is to parenting. I didn't know that before, but I was well practiced. And so it was a wonderful, I think, way for her to leave this earth. And yeah, my goal was to make her laugh and bring joy and love back into her life. And so we filled those 3.5 years with a bunch of adventures. So the book is funny. People say they cry out loud and they laugh out loud, which is a great compliment, because humor is a big part of my family. And especially in the dark times. So I use it in all dark times. I have to tell you, so I had a serious medical thing. Not so, it turned out to not to be so serious. So they had to do some things that, for a man is a little uncomfortable. And it was a lady. So she comes in, I said, should we have a cup of coffee first? and they're French. And so it was lovely. So I got her laughing so that we broke the ice with something like that. Anyway.
Excellent.
Okay,
well,
your turn.
I'll put a link to the book for sure. And you said you're now working on a book about your dad. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
We're a good way through it. Yeah. Well, it was interesting. So before I turned the final manuscript over to Write Life, I cut about 4,000 words out of it, thinking that, no, this is more appropriate for a book about my dad. And if I ever reissue the A Cup of Tea, I will probably take a few more things, because there's some other chapters that I've expanded on that were in Cup of Tea that, again, are more appropriate. So I'm trying to look at those with a fresh perspective. And so we'll deal with that. But yeah, I think right now the working title is Slightly Unsalted, which is a part of my dad's personality. He invented this popcorn snack back in 1963, and I do have a chapter about that in the A Cup of Tea. And so when he had one flavor that he called Slightly Unsalted, and not too salty, not unsalted, but slightly unsalted was his play on words. And so when after he passed, I was working on bringing it to the market. And so after he passed, that was kind of like the catalyst. I got my brother involved, and we brought it to market within a year. And the pilot flavor was Slightly Unsalted. So we had 3 flavors. So each one was slightly something. So the next one was slightly spicy. The next one was slightly sweet. And so my dad's personality was all over it. So the book has, there's 3 stories. So it's my dad's last 8 days. I only had 8 days with him. And then the Nutrinuts is what he called them. They ended up being a national brand called the Grandpa Poe's Originals when we did it. And then and it was the snack of the day on Rachel Ray. And that was great. And then I took him when he was 80 years old to the little village where his father came from in Italy. And it was first time out of the country. In the Army, he had an ear issue, so he couldn't fly, but he was a chemist. So they sent him out to Utah to work on chemical warfare. He wasn't all that excited about talking about that, which we'll talk about in the book. But we went to this little village. At the time, it was about 200 people. And we ended up, I'll have to read it. We ended up clearing the family name, because nobody had been there in 100 years, and there was some rumor going on about my great-grandfather who left under, I guess, some interesting circumstances. So we did clear the family name, so that trip was very worthwhile. And I shot a documentary of that, and that is on the Cup of Tea in the bonus materials, because I do have a short chapter about that in A Cup of Tea. And it was great. And that might have been my first foray into caregiving, because he was about 5 or 6 years into his heart disease, which is a horrible death. But he still wanted to go. So 16 days, we were in a foreign country. Neither of us spoke Italian, and dealing at that time with the lira and all that business. And then I'm filming and hoping he's going to survive and stuff. So that was great. But he said it was one of the highlights of his life. And his house, the father's house and his grandfather's is still there. And the village historian filled us in with all kinds of stuff, all good, by the way. And then he took us to the house, and I had all these dreams of what I wanted to see, and I didn't even have to ask. They were, oh, and this, oh, and my gosh, and this. It's fantastic. So I have a picture of my dad knocking on his father's door, the house he grew up in. So it's lovely. It was a lovely story, and so that'll be a good part of the next book, The Slightly Unsalted.
Excellent. Something to look forward to for sure. Well, Mark, I want to thank you for agreeing to come on to the podcast. I always enjoy talking to you, and I've always had sort of an interest in the behind the scenes workings in Hollywood. So you're a great person to talk about.
I want to see if you're cleared. Yeah, he's
right,
okay.
Right. Hopefully, I won't be getting drawn into some legal problems here from your lawyer. But I really appreciate this. I'll put the links to your book and your website that you brought up here during the interview. That'll be in the show notes. And Mark, I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Third time's the charm.
That's right. Excellent. Well, we'll have you on for a fourth as well.
Okay, super. All right,
you.
ciao.